What's up everybody? My name is Jonathan Casey, in case you guys don't know me. If you do know me, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the Galaxy A51, in specific, the cameras. I'm going to give you like a camera walkthrough or a camera review, but first I want to show you some sample images and some video clips. That way you know what this camera is capable of capturing. So make sure you stay tuned till after all of the samples get through if you want the walkthrough and the review. So let's not waste any more time and dive straight into it. Oh, by the way, this was shot on the A51 in 4K using the front-facing camera. So let me know what you think of the quality down below. Alright, so first things first, let's go ahead and discuss the hardware. The A51 features a quad camera setup on the back. I guess if you own the phone, then you probably already know that. The quad setup consists of a 48 megapixel main camera. It's a half-inch sensor with a pixel size of 0.8 microns, has an aperture of f2, and it uses PDAF or phase detection autofocusing, just like the S20 Ultra. The other camera is an ultra-wide at 12 millimeters with an aperture of f2.2. Next up is a 5 megapixel macro camera with a pixel size of 1.12 microns and an aperture of f2.4. Lastly, there's a dedicated depth camera, which is used for live focus. On the front, we have a 32 megapixel wide camera. Interesting fact for you, the sensor size is only a hair smaller than the Galaxy S20 Ultra, coming in at 1/2.8 inches. When I saw that, I found it pretty interesting considering the S20 Ultra has probably the best front-facing camera on any phone. Alright, so with the hardware out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the camera software. The first thing I want to talk about is the overall interface whenever you're just in the main photo mode. As soon as you open up the camera app, starting at the bottom, on the far left, we have access to our gallery. So this is going to show you your most recent photo as like a preview, and then if you tap on it, it's going to pull up your gallery, so then you can scroll through all the pictures that you've taken. If we go back, next to the gallery button is a shutter button if you're in the standard photo mode, like so. And then next to that, we have the ability to switch to the front-facing camera, which is like a circle with 2 arrows, and that's how you switch to the front. And then right above that, we have our different modes. Starting at the far left, we have live focus. This is gonna give you that portrait mode effect that the iPhone was really known for when it first came out. Next to that, we have our photo mode. Then we have pro mode. Unfortunately, pro mode is not available in video, only for photo, but it's gonna give you all of the controls that you've grown to love when it comes to Samsung's implementation of a pro mode. Next to that, we have video. Of course, self-explanatory. This is gonna be your video mode setting, and we're gonna come back to that, and we're gonna dive into what makes this unique. And then we have a more tab, and this is gonna be all the other modes available, like panorama. You guys know what that is. Then we have macro. This is gonna take advantage of that built-in or dedicated macro camera. Then we have food. Oh, going back to the macro real quick, I forgot to mention, macro mode does not have autofocus, so keep that in mind. You actually have to, work the camera a little bit, get in close enough in order to get a focused image. Then we have food. So for all the foodies out there you go. Then we have night mode. This is gonna give you like a long exposure. So if you're doing something in low light and the standard mode just isn't working out for you, use night mode. Also, night mode is available on the front-facing camera when it comes to the A51, which is awesome. Next to night mode, we have super slow motion. I believe this is at 960 frames per second. If not, it's at 480. Regardless, it doesn't look very good, and I personally wouldn't use it. But I would use the regular slow motion, which is done in 240 frames per second, I believe, at 1080p, and it looks pretty good, especially if you're in good lighting. And then lastly, we have hyperlapse. Pretty self-explanatory. If you're trying to do like a walking time lapse, hyperlapse will come in clutch. And then let's go ahead and go back to photo. Above the modes, we have the ability to switch to the standard wide and then the ultra wide. And then on the far right, we have the scene optimizer, which can be toggled on and off just by tapping on that. So if you notice that your colors are kind of funky and maybe it's doing something weird to skin tones, try to toggle off scene optimizer and then retake the photo. You might get better results. At the very top, we have, starting at the far right, the ability to assign different filters in camera. So when you take the photo with these filters turned on, it's going to be baked into the image. And then next to that, we have beauty mode, and you can toggle it on and off. If you toggle it on, you have access to skin smoothness. You can do various tones for the skin. You can do jawline improvements. I don't know, I don't really use it, so I can't tell you how good it works. And then lastly, we have eyes. So if you wanted to make your eyes bigger, I guess, for a selfie image or make your friend's eyes bigger, you could do that right there in camera. Just remember, it will be baked in. My personal recommendation is to use third-party software to accomplish any beauty mode effects that you want to do. Next to the beauty mode and filter toggle, you have your aspect ratios. So if you tap on that, you're gonna see an option for 3x4 and 48 megapixels. This is gonna give you the full resolution of the sensor. However, if you want better low light results, just tap on 3x4, and that's gonna take the 48 megapixel photo and then compress it to 12 megapixels and ultimately compressing a lot of that noise. And then you have 9x16, 1x1, and full. Just remember, all of these other aspect ratios will affect the resolution of your image. If you go to the timer, you have 2 seconds, 5 seconds, and 10 seconds. And then of course you have your options for flash. Go ahead and dive into the settings. Some of the things that I wanna quickly touch on are the scene optimizer, which I showed you can be toggled on and off right here. But if you wanna do it within the settings app, you could do so. Then you have shot suggestions, which is really cool. So if I toggle that on, it's gonna put a little circle in the center of the frame, and another circle is gonna pop up on the frame. And once you align those two circles, it means that you have framed your photo correctly and it will turn yellow. It's really neat for people that don't know how to frame images or understand things like the rule of thirds. It might help you out, especially in like a landscape photo, but I just usually leave it on because even for me, sometimes the images that it suggests that I take really have come out pretty good. So going back into the settings, we have the QR code scanner. You can change what happens whenever you long press the shutter button. So right now, or by default, it's usually on take a picture. It might be on burst shot actually. A burst shot, so if you hold down the shutter, it's going to take a bunch of shots, but you could change that to just have it take a single picture, or you can create a GIF. If we go into the save options, we have the option to save HEIF pictures, which is high efficiency image format photos. This means that it's going to give you better compression with smaller file sizes. The downside to that is all computers and all other smartphones or tablets may not support that image format, but if you have a modern phone or a modern computer or a modern tablet, chances are you're gonna be just fine. So I just leave mine on, and then the ultra wide lens correction, I always leave that on. If we keep going down, we have settings for HDR. We have pictures as previewed, which means if you're taking a selfie, for example, however you see yourself in your display, that's how the image is gonna come out versus flipping it sometimes. So we have the option for grid lines. So if you wanted the rule of thirds always on your display, you can turn that on, and now you can see we have the rule of third lines. And to wrap it up, we have location tags, shooting methods, which is various ways to trigger the shutter button. At the very top, we have the volume key. So by default, if you press the volume down button, it's going to either take a photo or start a video recording, but you can change it to zoom, or you can change it to just, controlling your volume. I usually leave it on take picture or record video. And then right below that, we have voice control, which is how you're able to trigger the shutter using your voice. So you can say things like smile, cheese, capture, or shoot, and then it will automatically take a photo or start a video recording. Below that, we have the floating shutter button. So if I toggle that on and then go back to the main camera interface here, you can see it puts up a second shutter button, and I can drag and put it anywhere on the display to make triggering the shutter just a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and dive back into the settings, scroll all the way down to shooting methods, and I'm gonna go ahead and toggle off the floating shutter button. And the last one is show palm. If you're big into taking selfies, then show your palm is gonna come in clutch, specifically when using the front-facing camera. As soon as the camera detects your palm, it will automatically trigger the shutter, so you could be further away from the camera and you can have it on a tripod if you want to get like a full body shot. Honestly, there's a lot more I could talk about when it comes to all of the different modes inside this camera, but if I tried, I'd be here all day. So if there's a lot of interest or request, I will put together a camera tips and tricks video, so let me know if that's something that's, piques your interest. For now, let's go ahead and move on with video, beginning with the main interface. Moving over to video mode is as simple as just swiping over to video, or you can just tap on the name where it says video. Either way, they both work. So starting at the bottom from left to right, we have quick access to the gallery, we have our record button, and then we have our toggle for the front-facing camera. Then moving up, we have our various modes, and then we have the ability to switch to the wide angle and to the standard wide. One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the macro mode is that video does not work when using the dedicated macro camera. Kind of a bummer, like I don't know why we can't shoot video using the macro camera. I think that'd be kind of cool. Maybe they could push it out in an update, I don't know, but at the time of this video, video does not work with macro, in case you were wondering. Going above the lens selection or the camera selection, we have our top row of icons. Starting at the right, we have AR Doodle. So if you wanted to doodle a little bit while you are shooting some video, you can do that. Obviously, you can see I never use it. Next to that, we have our aspect ratios. 9:16 is the default aspect ratio, and whenever you flip it to landscape, it's going to become 16:9. If you wanted to do something more Instagram friendly, 1:1 is always the best aspect ratio for that. And then you have full, which is going to take up the full width of the display. I usually just keep mine on 9:16 and 16:9. Then we have super steady video. Super steady video only works in 1080p, but if you're looking for some silky smooth video, enable that and then chase your kids around or chase your dog around, your goldfish, whatever you have, it's going to be super stable. Next to super steady video, we have our flash, so you can have it automatically turn on whenever it feels the need to turn on. It doesn't really work this way in video, but for stills, you can have it like that. And then we have the ability to turn it on like a flashlight, so it stays on all of the time. More appropriate for video, but I never use it, so I'm gonna go ahead and toggle it off. And then let's go ahead and dive into the settings, beginning with the rear video size resolutions. So in 16:9, we have access to 3840 by 2160 or 4K UHD. Then we have 1920 by 1080, and then we have 720p. You'll notice that you do not have 60 frames per second in any of these modes, which is kind of weird. And in case you're wondering, none of them are 24 frames per second, they're all 30, so bear that in mind. Then if you wanted to shoot in a different aspect ratio, like use the full width of the display, it peaks at 2400 by 1080. And if you wanted to use that Instagram friendly mode or 1:1, you're looking at 1440 by 1440. My suggestion is just shoot in 4K and then crop into the aspect ratio that you need to crop into. Just make sure you shoot wide enough that you can actually do all of that cropping without losing anything that you wanted in the frame. Let's go ahead and back out and look at the front facing video size. So you can see it maxes out at 3840 by 2160, and all of the other resolutions are the same as well, and the same thing with the aspect ratios. Again, no 60 frames per second here, kind of weird, but the fact that it has 4K on the front-facing camera at this price point is kind of cool. So let's go ahead and back up. We have high efficiency video codec, which is just like HEIF, but this is HEIC, so it's the same concept though. It's gonna give you better compression and smaller file sizes. The downside is all phones, tablets, and computers may not be compatible with this codec, so if you're trying to share a video, they may not be able to view it depending on whatever computer or device they're using, but most modern phones and most modern computers are capable of viewing this type of codec, so now you know. Then we have video stabilization, which is turned off because it does not work in 4K. Then we have pictures as previewed, same thing as with stills. However you shoot it is how it's going to look. In terms of perspective, of course. Then we have grid lines, same thing, and pretty much everything else down here is the exact same as when in stills mode. The A51 has a surprisingly great camera for the price. Coming in at $399 here in the US, I believe it's one of the better smartphone cameras in this price range. While it's not iPhone SE or Pixel 3a quality, I think it brings a nice balance of features and quality. Having the ability to use live focus without a human face makes that mode much more usable than the iPhone SE's portrait mode, plus having a dedicated pro mode for photos and the ability to use night mode with the standard ultra-wide and front-facing cameras really add to the functionality of the A51. Even the macro camera is fun to play with, even though it doesn't have autofocus. It would have been cool to see 4K 60 on the A51, but that could be a processor limitation. In any case, I personally like the cameras, and I think that most other people will too. So if you're in the market for the A51 or you're looking at the A51 as your next phone and cameras are the most important thing to you, I don't think you're gonna be disappointed. Let me know what you guys think of the A51, and if you wanna see more A51 camera videos like the tips and tricks that I mentioned earlier, let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Subscribe for more videos just like this, and I'm gonna talk to you Swedish meatballs in the next one.